Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today is a very special episode for me because this is the kind of content that I really want to bring to the YouTube sphere, the Fragcom, if you will. I was given a sample set of a brand new house to me from India. Actually, this is a house that you actually had to be in India to sample, to buy. Up until just recently, he is just opening up international shipping. And I'll tell you that this is very exciting for me. And, you know, this type of content, here's the thing. This type of content is not the type of content that's going to, make your channel. It's not something that, is going to get 12,000 views or anything like that. These individual reviews sometimes don't get the, they don't get the eyeballs that some of the lists get and stuff like that. But I don't really care because for me, this is the type of content that I hope people can come back and reference. And since I do this as a hobby, I don't really care, how many views a video gets. This is the type of video that I want to make. This is important content to me because I feel like I've stumbled across an amazing house and we're getting in right at the ground floor, right as he's opening up his doors to international, basically, to the rest of the world. And the house is called Sherwood. And the gentleman's name who makes the fragrances and owns the house is called Prakar Gupta. And so Prakar, thank you very much for sending me these very generous samples. I've been sort of lounging around the house on a Sunday afternoon, testing out Czar today. So we're going to talk about Czar, by the way, which if you don't know, Czar is, well, you guys all probably know the Russian Czars, but many people don't realize that the word literally came from the Roman Caesar. And so that's where Czar came from, but it's not Czar like the Russians spell T-S-A-R. Like, for example, if you own Van Cleef & Arpels Czar, which is discontinued, but they're bringing it back. This is Czar, C-Z-A-R. So anyways, just a little backstory on that there. So here's the thing about this house is that this gentleman, Prakar Gupta, is very highly respected in the Indian Fragcom, basically, in the Indian fragrance community. And he's not a distiller, but he takes these oils and he blends them together into these amazing compositions. And, one thing that stuck out to me as soon as I saw, and the pricing on these is extremely fair. I think you could buy his entire line, everything that he has for sale, in perfume spray, let's say, form, for $700, and you'd get like the whole line, 10 fragrances or whatever it is. I don't know exactly how much each one is, but it's probably somewhere in that $70 to $80, $90 range, let's say. Very, very respectably priced. And it got me thinking about a conversation that I once had with Russian Adam, and we were just talking, as friends, on WhatsApp, and he was telling me about his life in Indonesia, and I was telling him about my life in Texas, and he was shocked at literally, he was bowled over by how expensive it was to live in the United States, what housing prices are, what car prices are, what food prices are, because living in Indonesia, it's a completely different ball game over there. And I think his cost of living and where they were, and also him and Bortnikov, of course, have roots to Thailand and stuff like that. And those type of countries, the living environment, the cost of living is completely different. And I think it's something similar in India. My guess is that if these fragrances were, being sold at your local Macy's counter, which let's just say that's never going to happen. But if they were, my guess is that these would be the comparable to the $400 or $500 Roja fragrances. Right? That's the price range that you would expect something like this to be in. One sniff of this, and you'll know exactly why I say what I have to say. Well, first of all, let me show you the note listing. That is the note listing. I took notes. The top notes are Italian bergamot, green lime, mandarin orange, Brazilian orange, tangerine, orange blossom, rose geranium, rosemary, nutmeg, and clary sage. That is the top notes. And the heart is Madagascan ylang ylang, neroli, tuberose, heliotropin, chamomile, gardenia, rose damascena, rosewood, Bulgarian lavender, hyacinth, Omani frankincense, or B. sacra from Oman, tonka bean, and then the base is orris root, oak moss, patchouli, Virginia cedar, gaiac wood, ambergris, sandalwood, civet, castoreum, musk, Spanish labdanum, styrax, cypriol, vanilla, and guardium balsam. Hell of a note listing. Is it made for a Czar? Is it made for a Caesar? Is it made for a ruler? Yes, absolutely. This fragrance is royal. It is complex, it's multifaceted, it changes, and this is my very first review of the house. So I wanted to pick one of his most popular, and apparently Czar is one of his best sellers, from what I hear. So let's get started. Actually, I'm going to do a fresh spray because it's been a while, so I'm going to do some sprays on the back of my hand right there just so you guys can see. I wish you guys could smell this right now. So luckily I did not lose my sense of smell whenever I caught COVID last week. It's been about a week or so, so I'm on the mend. I hope I look better than the last couple days videos that I've done. And I was gonna wait on doing this, but he gave me more than enough juice where even if I, was not confident in my olfactory abilities to really pick everything out and be proper, I could always wear this again and do a video next time. But I have no problem smelling this, luckily. I never lost my sense of smell, and I'll tell you what. This fragrance basically opens up like a vintage style, old school take on a Chypre. Okay, that's basically the way it's executed. It's in that style, and it completely, totally blows my socks off. Basically it opens up smelling as if you're like Lucille Ball at the chocolate factory, and not in a chocolate factory smell, but if you know the episode I'm talking about where Lucy is, wrapping the chocolates and putting them aside at the candy factory or whatever, and then all of a sudden they turn the speed up on her, and she's like trying to hurry up and pick everything off and put them, and she's like hiding them everywhere. And if you've seen that episode, that's how the fragrance starts. You're like, okay, I can sort of get the Brazilian orange and the lime, very sprightly lime, right? Zesty opening and all of this stuff. I can get all of this. And then all of a sudden the notes just like the floodgates open and they just come at you, and you're just your nose is just trying to catch everything. It's a whirlwind at first. Fast and furious whirlwind is basically how it opens up. It's extremely bright and zesty, and you get multiple sprightly sort of fresh citruses, but it doesn't come off smelling fresh right out of the gate, because almost instantly you're hit with this combination of a couple things. Herbalness, which basically comes from this lavender, this Bulgarian lavender, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit, and this resinous side, this sort of slightly resinous labdanum like feel, right? Gummy. It's almost like a gummy fragrance. And those come to your nose almost instantly with the citruses, okay? And it almost has this putty-like feel, all right? So if you've ever like caulked a crack in your wall or something like that with those do-it-yourself sort of putties, you put it on, you take the little spatula-looking thing, just flatten it out. That's sort of the way that the fragrance begins to feel almost instantly. There's this resinous and animalic quality that comes to your nose already. Already I can sort of get the castoreum and the civet in the base sort of climbing up the pyramid. Even though they're in the base, you can really get them even when you first spray like this. But they come out even heavier in the dry down, if you will. So the animalics are lurking in the background is what I'm meaning to say, but you can pick them up even from the first spray. So there is this underlying dirty feel to this fragrance. So, it's almost like that putty warmth. You know how when you warm the putty up, it starts to become more malleable, right? So almost like this putty warmth I talked about previously was generated by the warmth of the fragrance feels like it's maybe being generated by the natural warmth of like two bodies up against each other, right? So there's this two bodies holding each other. If you want to be romantic, you can say under the stars or whatever you want, right? But the warmth of, let's say, a body and another body put against each other, and it amplifies the warmth, let's say, in the bed or whatever it is. And that's how the fragrance feels. And it's because of the way there's this animalic sort of undertone, this undercurrent, undertow of animalics in this fragrance. And it's absolutely, absolutely brilliant. So one of the things that I'll say about the creation is this is a complex fragrance. You just saw the note listing. And from my initial sort of prognosis, this is an early impression. This is the first day I'm wearing this as my scent of the day or anything like that. But, you know, just one thing to keep in mind is that in case it wasn't completely clear from that huge note listing, this is a challenging animalic Chypre fragrance composition that it's going to take you on a journey. All right, so this is probably mostly going to be geared towards the hardcore frag heads, the people who like fragrance for, you know, wearing art in a bottle, the people who like their fragrances to start somewhere and end somewhere, people who like to see the journey of the fragrances, the people who like to pick out the different notes and, you know, enjoy fragrance in that regard. This is not going to be for somebody who wants compliments or anything like that. Although you may get compliments wearing this because, you know, the fragrance, the dirtiness, the animalicness in the fragrance, it doesn't come across and just slap you in the face. You know, it's not like, at least not right away. As it dries down, the animalics come out a little bit more, but they're part of an overall composition. So someone may smell this and think that this is like the peak of high artistic perfumery, and they may give you a compliment, but it's probably going to be somebody who has a more mature nose, you know, somebody who is younger or does not have much experience with fragrances probably would smell this and be off-put by it. I would think, or I would think they would just wrinkle their nose and say, no, thank you. Give me whatever the kids are wearing nowadays. That's probably shite. So within about half an hour or so, this opening, I just did a fresh spray. And by the way, I have a 7-hour dry down right here. And so I've been able to experience the top now multiple times and the and the mid and the dry down. But within about half an hour or so, that's when you're really going to see this major transition, the first major transition of this fragrance, which is more of the lavender begins to come out and more of the floral heart of the fragrance starts to come out. So you could call this a floral Chypre, although I would probably call it more of like an animalic floral Chypre. But there's a lot more going on than just a old school floral Chypre, if you will. But you could easily call it a floral Chypre because the floral heart in this fragrance is huge. It's gigantic. And what so bowled me over about Czar is that you could probably spend 10 minutes discussing each note in detail. I mean, literally, you smell the fragrance, and if you really wanted to focus on the quality of the nutmeg or the sweaty herbal clary sage, the dryness of the clary sage, the herbal oily rosemary, if you wanted to focus on the damask rose note or the gardenia or that, you know, spongy heliotrope or whatever note that you really want your brain to focus on, you can do it. You can find it. You can pick out the notes. I mean, it's so well blended that when you smell it, you think you're smelling this brilliant sort of, you know, orchestra-like composition. But if you really wanted to focus on a note and try to pick out the Madagascan ylang ylang, let's say, you could do it. You could absolutely do it. That's what has so shocked me about my first experience with this house. And so, like, for example, the hyacinth, right? Hyacinth is a huge note as far as strength and projection. And but one thing that Prakar Gupta did with the creation that I think is somewhat brilliant. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he's just you know, happenstance or if it's something he did on purpose, but there's this space between the notes in that, you know, you can pick out the hyacinth and it has room to sort of breathe. You know, it has breathing space, if you will. And the hyacinth smells slightly sweet, smells green. And there is in Greek, hyacinth literally means flower of the rain. And so to me, there's a slightly salty aquatic, side to the hyacinth, which, could very well also be the ambergris, because there's a real ambergris note in this as well. That could be the ambergris sort of climbing up the ladder, the pyramid, the note pyramid, if you will, and sort of already seeping through. And you know, it's if a creator of a fragrance this complex is not careful, easily there could be one note, like hyacinth is a great example. That's why I chose it to spotlight here. Because if you're not extremely careful with the way you dose your ingredients, hyacinth, I feel like, can just overtake everything in the composition. You wouldn't be able to smell the gardenia. You wouldn't be able to smell the more relaxing chamomile. You know, you wouldn't be able to smell the folded laundry sheet like style in the neroli, or, you know, all of these things that you can smell in here, you wouldn't be able to smell with just a little overdose of hyacinth. It would just take everything over. It is just a huge projector. And it's the same, like if you have a hyacinth flower in the room and you have other flowers in the same room, you won't be able to smell anything but the hyacinth. It just takes it over. It just takes over the room. It's a huge potent plume flower, you know, just a projector. And it just overpowers all the other florals, and it's just expertly blended to give it breathing room and beautifully balance everything out in the formula. And so you could literally go each floral note, you know, like that. You go right down the line. The iris, the jasmine sambac, you know, one after the other, and go into the detail of the scent that I just went into with hyacinth. It is so complex, and that's where I'm sure that if I wore this tomorrow, that I would I would pick up on other bits and pieces and moving parts that I maybe didn't realize the first time around. Excuse me, the first go around. And so, you know, and if I wore it a third time, I'd probably get even more facets. That's the thing about this style of perfume that I absolutely love, is there's a lot to smell. It gives you a lot to smell, right? And so with the floral heart sort of blooming, you'll also get another note that sort of comes up right along with it. Around that 30-minute mark is when it really starts to shine. Excuse me whilst I hydrate. And that's this brilliant lavender note. Now, this is not the coarse style modern lavandin note that you're probably used to smelling in a modern release nowadays. So when you smell a modern perfume nowadays and you smell that herbal lavender that just, you know, almost like it's scratchy, it's loud, it overshadows the other notes, right? Like you're like, wow, that's lavender. It's usually not lavender. It's usually lavandin. And the lavandin note is cheaper to use. And actually, Remy did a video with Persolaise where he was talking about many farmers nowadays, they won't even plant lavender because the houses, they want to use lavandin. It's cheaper for them to use. It's I think it's a more camphoraceous like smell, if I'm not mistaken. The lavender note in Czar is Bulgarian lavender, which apparently the best lavenders grow at very high altitudes for perfume lavender. And Bulgaria has a climate that is relatively close to France. And so the best French, true, proper lavender doesn't have this very medicinal, you know, more camphor-like elements of English lavender, let's say, or lavandin. And I think that Bulgarian lavender is closer to the proper French lavender, if I'm not mistaken. And so they call lavandin bastardized lavender, or bastard lavender, because basically whenever you take two lavender species and you blend them together, you create this broadly referred to class of lavender as lavandin. And it's sort of like a hybrid creation is basically what it is. So proper lavender is soft, it's floral, it can be somewhat peppery or herbal and sweet, but it's that floral side of things, the softness, I think, that really throws people off. They're not used to that, and that's how it smells here, but blended with the putty. So keep that putty thing in the back of your mind, right? Keep that caulk. You know, you've got a crack in the wall, you're going to caulk it, you put the putty on, right? Either run your thumb along it and then just wash your hand, or you get that little metal, you know, that little metal spatula looking thing and just make it smooth so it's even with the wall, right? And then it'll hide the crack, and then you can paint over it. Keep that sort of image of the texture of the fragrance in your mind, because while I'm talking about these other scents, they're all part of this brilliant composition. And so this proper soft floral herbal lavender is sort of what you get here. And it's not the in-your-face, loud, scratchy, camphoraceous type of lavender. It's actually very different, and it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It smells very high class, and as the fragrance continues to dry, you're going to get all of these individual flowers I mentioned earlier, the damask rose, the chamomile, gardenia, heliotrope, which works, I think, in concert with the resins in the base to give it that putty-like smell, texture. Hyacinth, iris, beautiful iris, by the way, jasmine sambac, Madagascan ylang ylang. There's a huge ylang ylang note in this fragrance. Neroli, and then the smokiness of the frankincense. And around the 2 to 3 hour mark, as the fragrance continues to dry and continues to move towards the base notes, that's where you're going to begin to notice the animalic notes start to really come to the surface, okay? And those animalic notes are going to be castoreum, ambergris, civet. Those are the big three in this fragrance. Excuse me. Sorry to cough in your ear. Still getting over the corona. And so the dry down takes the warmth of two bodies together, right? Like I said earlier, and it moves the clock forward by, let's say, a day, a morning, right? So now it's the morning after, and let's say you and your partner both work and you have to depart the room where you had this beautiful night together of romance, and what's left is sort of the sheets, which were drenched in sweat. Now the sweat has dried and left this sort of salty, sweaty, that's the ambergris, and then of course the civet, which comes across here as sour. You know, it's almost like a sour civet, and slightly pissy, and you know, body odor, or you know, the ambergris has this salty, slightly marine, but this is not anywhere near an aquatic fragrance. In fact, if I had to characterize the scent, there's actually 3 fragrances which instantly came to mind. And this is a category that has sort of grown in my mind the more I've explored other houses and stuff like that. But probably one of the most popular that I think people would be able to associate with is this. This is Civet by Zoologist. Not Civet, the ingredient, but Civet, the fragrance by Zoologist. Created by Shelley Waddington. It ended up being a Arts and Olfaction Award finalist in 2017. I actually have a review of this on the channel if you want to kind of see my thoughts on this. I really like this. If money was no issue, I would own this. I would own Sacred Scarab in full bottle form. I would own T-Rex in full bottle form. But there's no natural animal products in any of the Zoologist fragrances. These are all synthetic, okay? Here in Sherwood Czar, I think he's using real civet. Is what I think. I don't know if anyone knows, and I'm sure I'll get comments below. But my guess is that these are not necessarily just synthetic creations. That there actually is civet in here. There actually is castoreum. There's real damask rose in here. There's real iris. That's what it smells like to me, and that's what I sort of understand the house to be. But so I want you to just imagine the night before is now fast forwarded to the morning after, and that hot, steamy room that's holding the memory of, let's say, a beautiful, passionate night together that you had with your loved one, your partner. It's now moving into the next morning, into the dry down, and you start to get these woody notes in the base that also begin to move forward with those animalic notes, right? So there's Gaiac wood. Gaiac wood can sometimes come across as barbecue, like smoky wood, and it blends beautifully with the Omani frankincense. There is Virginia cedar, and the Virginia cedar in the base here, as it continues to go to the base starts to give off this slight pencil shaving vibe, you know, like you're in elementary school again, and you have your little pencil box, and you had to sharpen your pencil in either one of those electric pencil sharpeners or, you know, by hand, and the pencil shavings that are left after that pencil being sharpened are still in your box, and you sort of take it with you. You come home, you open it up, and you're hit with that fresh pencil shavings. With the animalics, with the woods, with the resins like guardian balsam and musks. And I think he uses real musk too. I'd love for somebody to clarify the house's, you know, stance on using like real musk, real civet, real ambergris, real castoreum, all that good stuff. There's also some cypriol, which I have an entire video on cypriol. I love cypriol. It's like a earthy type smell. Imagine like a earthy take on like a weird smelling patchouli. A lot of houses use it as a replacement for oud, if you will. But it's just beautiful. You know, it's a and then as it continues to dry, so now once you get 4, 5, 6 hours in, you start to really the florals linger. Everything, the florals linger in this scent, and so, you know, as the florals are sort of lingering in the air, and the resins are starting to come in more, but it's a Chypre, so it's not just going to dry down into this. It's not just going to dry down into this big resinous ball. It's also going to bring in these amazing mossy notes, and so it's a big mossy, dirty, complex, just a superb combination. Superb. I would say younger noses might have to get pretty adventurous to really appreciate this. Like if you're new in the fragrance game, this might be one where you're going to want to smell it. Whatever your reaction is, put it aside for 6 months or a year and come back to it, right? Because this may be something that you will end up falling in love with eventually. But my guess is someone like me or other fragrance addicts, people who are really big into the fragrance game and wear perfume as an art form or art in a bottle, they would love this. They would absolutely love Czar. It's you know, doing this review, I was thinking about actually, because all of these right here, I don't know if you can see the samples that look pretty similar. These are all from Sherwood. He sent me like an entire care package recently, and very generous samples. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe we'll do like a live stream where we try them all. But whenever I do those live streams, I feel like the fragrances don't get the attention that individual reviews get. So like I did that with Zoologist because I had so many. And I feel like even though there's like 3 live streams now on my channel dedicated to Zoologist where we tried them all, they just sort of get pushed. It's too much work for someone to go look, you know, where did Ramsey talk about this fragrance? But then like if I, like my Harvest Mouse video that I did, I think got more views than the whole live stream I did, where we tried like 6 or 8 at once. So I'm a little torn. This house deserves, I would say, individual reviews. There are some houses that I don't think deserve that, and I think I will maybe just do live streams on some of those. That's one of the reasons I haven't been live streaming lately, is I feel like it bunches all the fragrances together, and some people just, you know, unless it's like you give them too much to focus on and then they just scatterbrain and that's it. And this house deserves better than that. They deserve an individual review on each one of these, because if this is any indication of what's to come from the House of Sherwood, I really feel like this is something that I feel like we are, it's like buying a stock like IPO and watching it go up like 10 times, you know, from where you bought it at. Or it's like being in at the ground floor of a Savant, like buying Russian Adams' work in 2017 or something like that, right? And getting it at a fantastic price. And the pricing on these, now here's the issue. I will say this, there are pros and cons. The con is there's no website. So there's no Sherwood website you can just go order from. You have to hit him up on Instagram or something like that, and he'll send you like a pricing list, and you can say, yes, I'll take this one or that one, and he'll just ship them to you. So it's still a little bit clunky as far as that goes, but it really feels like you're getting in on the ground floor of something pretty special. At least to me it does. To this nose it does. And, you know, even though he's not a distiller, I know that there's a lot of, he's in Mumbai, by the way, but I know there's a lot of cities around India where they still distill traditional, they do traditional sandalwood distillations, traditional rose distillations for their attar business. I don't know if he uses some of those traditional distillations in his work, but God, the quality of the ingredients here smells out of this world. It smells so good. And maybe us in the West, we're just not used to this. You know, we're used to some house that's owned by one of the big five conglomerates that don't give two fucks about us, that, you know, are making a $2 fragrance and putting it in a $180 bottle. And it's probably a tenth of the quality of this, right? And so this is the stuff that you sort of have to find. You have to find stuff like this nowadays. And luckily, I got very lucky with this, because what happened is a couple people left me a message saying, hey, you need to try some of these Indian, like, fragrance houses. And I said, I have no way to, you know, unless they're willing to send it to me. And I think Prakar picked up on that, and either he was watching my channel or someone said, hey, maybe you could send this guy like a quick little care package. And he had a friend who ended up muling the fragrances over and then sending them to me from inside the United States after much prodding from Prakar. And so, yes, I mean, I got very lucky with these landing in my lap. But other than that, there's a whole world out there of, you know, attars and stuff like that in India, that in the Western side of things, we are like, you know, ignorant to, let's say. We are not, our noses are not accustomed to smelling this type of perfumery. And this quality at this price point, it's just not something we're used to at all. We're used to, you know, the $500, you know, fragrance that $300 of it is made on the bottle, or 300 is going to profit, and, you know, $50 is the bottle and the juice combined, and, you know, the rest is going to the store that's selling it or whatever it is, and it's a $500 fragrance, and it's nowhere near as good as this. So I'm a big fan. Let's say this is a win. This is a good first fragrance to begin with. Oh, I'm glad I started with Czar. Also, by the way, I said there were a fragrance type that this reminds me of. So I mentioned Zoologist Civet, right? The other one is Roja's Chypre Extraordinaire, which I have a video on. I don't have a very good video on it because I didn't know what to say, because this fragrance is kind of boring to me. It's in the same style, but this was a $1,750 fragrance, okay? Not for this Discovery atomizer, but for a full bottle. They cut the price by $1,000. Now it's $750. And what is this, $80 or something like that? And so, you know, but it's in this style, Zoologist Civet. These are old school sort of Chypres, if you will. And also, the one that I thought was the best out of this line. Civet's pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. I really like Zoologist Civet. But the one that I think is maybe my favorite of the bunch is Darren Allen's Chypre #1. Shout out to Rachel for sending this to me. Yeah, Chypre #1. This is a really, also in this style though, very similar style, but I think this is one, I'll have to review this one of these days. But now that this comes in, I think this is now my favorite of this style. And so now I have 4 fragrances that, in my mind anyways, I put into this sort of style of perfume, if you will. These rich, vintage style Chypres, which I love. I absolutely adore this type of perfumery. I've been in heaven this Sunday at home, just enjoying the day. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Texas. It rained last night, and I've just been getting to know the house of Sherwood for the very first time, and it's been an absolute joy. So thank you to Prakar Gupta for sending your work along to me. I hope that you guys watching this, you know, if you're in the market for another fragrance, give him a try, give him a shout. you know, you may have to blind buy it, but I'll tell you what, as far as blind buys go, under $100 for juice of this quality is not that big of a risk compared to what us in the Western world are used to spending on some of these, you know, bottles you see behind me. This is, you know, I think this is a really up and coming house. So yes, that's my take on Czar by Sherwood. If you have had a chance to smell it, if anyone's in Indian Fragcom or anything like that, and you've had a chance to smell Czar, do let me know what you make of it. Let me know if you think I'm on point, if I'm way off base. I love seeing your faces in the comments. You know, this is the type of content that I really feel happy about bringing to Fragcom, because there's very few people that are going to talk about something like this. You know, they're more interested in talking about the new Roja or whatever it is, right? They're the new hype beast, whatever's going to get them views and clicks, and the new Zahara fragrance or whatever they're talking about on the other channels. But this is the kind of stuff that I want to do, off the beaten path, and I think I really stumbled upon a gold mine here. So thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.